To honor the history of the Irish and Irish immigrants in New York, Battery Park City commissioned a contemplative space devoted to raising public awareness of the events that led to the Great Irish Hunger and Migration of 1845 to 1852. In the minutes that follow, meet artist Brian Tolle and enjoy a look behind the scenes at creating Irish Hunger Memorial.
Landscape, place, home. That's a universal theme, and it's something that everybody understands something about. So even though this is so much about the Irish famine and the experience, one of my missions was to make it about hunger as a global condition. This country is a country of immigrants, and it's because of that diversity and because of that influx of new energies and new interests and new belief systems that keeps this place dynamic. Where the World Trade Center once stood and fell, and where the new tower stands, is pretty much at the place that was called 5 Points, which is where most of the Irish immigrants settled when they arrived here in New York. So there's a very direct connection between the history of Ireland, but also the history of Irish immigration into the States. When I was asked to develop the proposal, the first thing I did was to go to Ireland, and I explored all of the various histories. All of the materials that have been chosen for the memorial are from Ireland, including the pavement stones and the facade stones that you see here. The idea for me was that when you enter the plaza, you're actually making direct contact with history. The stones that we see around us and the white fossils come from the ancient Irish seabed, and they're over 500 million years old. We go to this sort of prehistory that grounds us and gives us a connection to a world that existed before humans. You'll see that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different strata that represent different eras in history. And at the very top, there's this tiny little green film that we live on. Of the 110 species of plants that are grown on the memorial, they're all native species of Ireland, and they're not hybridized. So when you see a geranium here, it's a geranium in its original form, not in the showy form that we've come to know them. The potato comes from South America, and it was originally imported by the aristocracy, and they grew beyond the manor houses, and it became a staple for the poor. A typical Irish laborer would eat 10 pounds of potatoes a day. So if you can imagine a population that's dependent upon 10 pounds and within 24 hours everyone is inedible, what do? In the meantime, the British government saw Ireland as it was their territory. And they were exporting all the milk, and anything that they wanted was leaving the country in the middle of this time when all these people were starving. Hunger is primarily about the politics of land and how land is used, who has access to the land. I started thinking about how might I best use the land to personify this kind of inequity. A quarter of an acre happens to be the exact size of the landscape of this memorial. And that quarter of an acre is the minimum amount of land that an extended family needs to cultivate to survive. My decision was to create a fallow space, a place that was lost, a place that was no longer inhabitable because of this terrible thing that happened to the people who once occupied it. This part of the house was built in a small parish called Addymans in County Mayo. That parish was the place where the first recorded death of starvation occurred in Ireland. I met with my mother-in-law, my partner Brian's mother, and we went through an old photo album. And sure enough, there's a picture of this house. And so we called Tom Slack, cousin Tanya Slack, and then we explained to him what we wanted to do with it. And he said, oh, that's interesting, the idea of it. And he came back and he said, okay, you can have the house. On one condition. My family, who remained in Ireland through the famine, is giving it to the family who left. When you enter the memorial and you actually engage with the landscape, you as the visitor become the figure in the landscape. So there are days when it's cold and raining and you pass by this place and you see this absolutely desolate place with this abandoned cabin, as the Irish called them, and you feel a sense of loss. But then there are days in July or August when it's lovely and sunny and people are coming down for a stroll by the river and there's 200 people occupying the memorial. You can't walk away from here without feeling though you're part of something greater than yourself.
Our lofty scenes, our valleys green, our mountains rude and wild. They say it is a lovely land wherein the prince might dwell. Oh, why did you abandon it? The reason to me tell.
Visit Battery Park City in Lower Manhattan and see almost 24 examples of the art of our time, from installations and landworks to sculpture and memorials.